everybody, welcome to another episode of What Ted Says, where it's always time to get a fatter wallet and a bigger net worth. And the question that I've been getting from a lot of people, it's why I want to do this episode today, is about your roommates. And what do you do when it comes to splitting bills? Because roommates aren't just for college students. No, they're not. In fact, a study by the Pew Research Center found that in 2017, nearly 32% of all U.S. adults had a roommate. 32%. Now, maybe you love living with others. That's possible. Or maybe you see managing expenses with a roommate as a necessary evil. A lot of people do in today's economy. And until you're ready to comfortably afford a place on your own, which you hope to do that one day. But whatever the reason that you share a bathroom, or in some cases a bedroom and a kitchen with roomies, it can translate into at least one positive thing, and that is real savings. Now, one of my producers on this show, on What Ted Says, Jamie, recently bought her first house. I was so proud of her, and I thought you would all enjoy us talking live with somebody who just really bought a house about how she went about splitting expenses with her roommates. This is something what a lot of people want to know. So let's talk about this. And Jamie, my first question to you, and a lot of people want to know, is how did you come up with the cost of a room? If you get a 3-bedroom house and you're going to live in one, and you basically have 2 that you're going to rent out, how'd you come up with the cost of a room?
So I have a 3-bedroom house, 2 roommates, and I looked at the Zillow rent estimate for other houses in my neighborhood.
Oh, good.
And I ended up making it a little bit cheaper because I'm living with 2 friends. But
Okay.
That's how I figured out the rent cost.
So that's one of the questions. If I have friends, do they get a better deal? But you use Zillow as the main template on where you got your, did you look at an apartments.com or anything like that or no?
No, just Zillow.
That's a consideration for you. You can look at something like Zillow, or you can go to something like an Airbnb or a VRBO, see the cost of a room, and think about what that might look like over the cost of a whole month. So one of the things I want to know is that they may be friends of yours, but what happens if they wreck your apartment or your entire house or wherever the situation may be? If you have a condo or a house, did you actually ask them for a security deposit?
I didn't, and I actually didn't think of that, but it's probably a good idea to ask for a security deposit. But if they broke something, they would pay for it, and I think they know that.
Right. This is just a contract you have between you and your friends, but for us friends here on What Ted Says, we won't say this to Jamie, you probably do want to get a security deposit because as much as you might trust your friends, what happens if they break something? What happens if the relationship goes south and you've actually got to get that money back from them? It's not going to be easy. So that brings me to one of my big questions in here, which is, do you actually have a written contract with the people who are renting from you?
I don't yet, but I think that I need to. I think that a month-to-month contract or lease, even if we are friends, should probably happen.
Yeah, see this? Jamie's getting smarter by the questions in here. And, and one of the things that you need to be thinking about is that whether they're friends or whether it's family, you must have a contract. Now, there are things that you're going to want to have in that contract. One of the things that Jamie mentioned is having the lease term. Is it going to be a month-to-month? And is that mutual? They can give you 30 days or you can give them 30 days. Are you going to hook them into the contract for a year, which a lot of apartment leases are? They're for 1 year. And is that contract going to have a rent escalator? So after a year, if they've got the ability to basically renew that lease or renew that room from you in your house, are you going to say there's going to be a 3 or a 5% escalator on that contract? Now, I think what a lot of people might want to know is that rent is one thing. And a lot of people don't always know what's included in rent. So when you think about all the other things that you have in a house, you've got electric, you've got gas, you've got water bill, even things like cable. And I know phone may be less because a lot of people just use their mobile phone as the home phone. How are you thinking about splitting up utilities and the cost of all of you?
So it'll be split 3 ways. We split power, water, Wi-Fi. We don't have cable. We'll split gas and trash.
Gas and trash. I like that. Gas and trash. So all those 5 things are basically the bill's going to come in. And how you physically collect the money? Are you all going to, sit around the table and play a game of Monopoly and then split it up? Or how will you actually get the cash from them? Are you going to do it once a month when you collect rent? Or are you going to do it, just at a periodic time during the month?
So all my bills are due not at the same time, but I will Venmo request them to be paid for the first of the month, the rent, and all of the utilities all at once.
So you tabulate all the bills and you take gas, trash, electric, all those basic bills, and you say that your share of it, a third, is going to be $110. Rent is $600, so you Venmo them and they owe you $710. So that might be one way to think about this. If you have a house, you may have other expenses you need to look at, especially if you have lawn maintenance or other things like that, to think about what's really going to be included, because part of this is making sure you have a really good conversation with the roommates that are going to move in so they understand what they are paying for and what they aren't paying for. And that brings me to the point about groceries. I'm wondering that you have roommates, and obviously you have to share the refrigerator, but does everyone get their own cabinet or their own shelf in the pantry? What happens if somebody steals your Captain Crunch or your Chex Mix or whatever it may be? How are you going to deal with something like that?
So we talked about splitting for groceries, the essentials like milk, eggs, stuff like that. And then everything that's just ours will have like a separate shelf in the fridge and a separate shelf in the pantry.
So it actually has a label on it? Does it say Jamie's shelf and Ted's shelf? Is that?
It probably won't have a label on it, and we probably will end up eating each other's stuff, but I think we figured it all kind of even out.
So this is like one thing that is definitely good to know in advance, and it's what can cause friction if somebody's renting a room from you or renting inside of your condo or whatever it may be, is thinking about those things like groceries. Do you need a separate shelf? Or do you agree that, if there's milk in there, if the milk ends, we're going to split that grocery bill? The more conversation that you have up front, the less hassle that you're going to have on the back end. So Jamie mentioned that she's going to do this on Venmo, and that's an excellent way, an easy app that you can download and basically send money from one person to another. If you're having trouble really calculating roommate expenses, you're not so good by sharpening the pencil or using an Excel spreadsheet, I might recommend that you look at other types of apps that are out there, like Splitwise is pretty good. You could look at one called IOU, literally IOU. There's one called Splitter, and then there's also one called Our Groceries. All of these, and these can be in conjunction or it can be used differently than Venmo, may all be ways that you can split expenses and make it easy with your roommate. So I want to know the next thing on here, which may be less financial, although I think it would be more affected in a condo building than having a house. What are you going to do about parking? If you have a 2-car garage and you have 2 roommates and each of them have a car, who gets to basically have the rain come down on their car?
So it'll kind of be first come, first serve, but we also work it out with our schedules. One of my roommates works in the medical industry, so her schedule's not set. So we can plan when someone's going to have to take a car out and when you can park in the garage or when someone's going to be blocking someone in. But really,
does everybody get a clicker? Does everybody get a clicker? So everybody gets a clicker to the garage. I would not give all of my kids a clicker, but that may have to be part of the deal. Now, here's the big question, because we know you don't have a lease contract today. Mm-hmm. And inevitably, although roommates will say that this will never happen, we could have 2 things that can happen in here. And these are non-financial, Jamie. Number 1 is they decide to throw a party without your permission. Number 2, which could be even worse, they start bringing in the regular boyfriend or girlfriend and then now you have a 4th person living with you, which is not the 3 of you, but it's the 4th person who's just hanging out, but they eat your food, they use electricity. How are you going to handle something like that?
The party situation, I think that they're going to think of my house as their house, too.
Right.
Which I'm okay with, and they should be able to have people over if I'm not there.
Yeah.
If someone breaks something, then they're going to be responsible for that.
Yeah, put a little hole in the wall or whatever.
Yeah, they're going to have to fix that. But as far as boyfriend, girlfriend, if it gets to a point where it's annoying, we'll have a talk.
Yeah. This is actually one of the even more interesting reasons why to have a contract, because of what Jamie just mentioned. If somebody does decide to throw a party, like you're away for the weekend or they just don't care and they have one and they're not terms spelled out in a lease contract, if something breaks, if they put a hole in the wall. Now, I can tell you this because many years ago, I lived in an apartment with a college roommate of mine and their girlfriend. Not so much fun. So you have to think about that. You may have to deal with that because their space is their space. And if they rent that space from you and you're in a house, they've got their room that might be theirs, but you have to say what happens from a common ground. That could be very, very difficult. And then I guess one of my final 2 questions on here is, what do you do about unexpected expenses? These may be one-time things that come up, like, now everyone wants lawn furniture outside, or they want other things that you wouldn't have bought for your house, but now they're like, come on, Jamie, let's get an arcade machine. let's get a pinball machine in the house. How will you deal with that?
So if I don't think it's necessary, I'm not gonna buy it. But one of my roommates has bought a lot of things that she wants for the house because she wants it. And I said, I don't want to buy that, but if you want to buy it and put it in the house, go for it. And she does.
So we talked about parties. We talked about boyfriends or girlfriends. What happens if one of the roommates goes like fatal attraction on you, like pulls a knife in the middle of the night? What are you going to do?
Well, we call the police.
Probably a good thing to know. Fire, police, and everything like that. Listen, this is why we wanted to run this What Ted Says episode this way, because you got to see some of this in real life. Now, Jamie did a lot of good things in here. I'm going to recommend that she gets a legal contract. I'm going to recommend that she gets a security deposit, even though they may be her close, longtime friends, and that may be uncomfortable. It's going to be a hell of a lot more uncomfortable if she has to ask for money down the road. So maybe you're moving out of an apartment and you're considering buying a home. And if you are, and you certainly can watch this video again, you're in luck. I've just put out a killer What Ted Says on how to win a bidding war on a home and what you need to do to make sure that you get that property, because it can be very difficult. Comment on this. Have you had roommates? Have you actually had to sign a lease? And have you actually had to kick somebody out of your house before? What does that look like? Make sure that you share this video with your friends or people that you know that may be getting out of college or buying their first house. Always make sure that you hit that subscribe button if it's your first time watching What Ted Says. Make sure you click that notifications button so you get the videos on every Monday and Thursday. So many good things that are coming out, but thanks as always for watching What Ted Says.